one of those men. His name was Johnny Shooter, but he became known to every fugitive simply as Shooter, the most dreaded name in the territory. Among wanted men, he was known as the deadliest of all manhunters. They knew if there was a price on your head, death was chasing you, and his name was Shooter. It was said around many outlaw campfires, the only thing worse than standing before the hanging judge is finding out Shooter is on your trail. Chapter 1. They called the dungeon-like basement jail Hell on the Border. It lived up to its name. The nauseating stench of urine, excrement, vomit, and sweat from his 87 fellow prisoners made breathing near impossible. The dankness of a fall night wrapped itself around Johnny Shooter and chilled him to the bone. He drew his long legs up into a tighter fetal position and shivered from the cold of the bare concrete floor. But maybe the worst thing of all was the noise. The constant uproar of curses and screams and shouting never stopped. He had resigned himself that his date with the hangman at high noon tomorrow would almost be a relief. Near a week had passed since his trial, which lasted less than an hour. The only witness to testify on his behalf was his cousin, Sam Thurman, one of Judge Parker's deputy marshals and Johnny's best friend. All Sam could say was that Johnny came from a good family and had never been in serious trouble. He never would have shot the Combs boys if they hadn't murdered his folks in cold blood, Sam told the court. But his testimony fell on deaf ears and hadn't made a whit of a difference. It was clear the jury had already made up their minds. "Guilty," the short, bald-headed foreman said after the jury deliberated all of 15 minutes. A self-satisfying smirk lifted one corner of the little man's cruel mouth, and he glanced quickly at Johnny before he said it. They were right, too. He shot Ed and Slim Kimes down like the dogs they were. When the judge asked him if he had anything to say before he pronounced sentence, Johnny said as much. "They had it coming," he told the court. "That low-down scum murdered both of my elderly parents. My folks gave them shelter on a cold, rainy night, and the Kimes brothers repaid their kindness by slitting their throats and robbing them. 21 lousy dollars. They murdered my ma and pa for $21. What was I supposed to do, just forget it? If I had it to do over, I'd do the same thing, and so would most of you if you're any kind of man, and that's all I got to say about that." To say the least, his impassioned lecture to the jury hadn't exactly helped his case. The words of Judge Isaac C. Parker still rang in his ears. He would never forget them. "Johnny Shooter, you've been found guilty of the murders of Ed and Slim Kimes. Although I sympathize with your reasons for what you did, under the law I am left with no choice. Therefore, I hereby sentence you to hang by your neck until you are dead. May God, whose laws you have broken, and before whose tribunal you must now appear, have mercy on your soul." Well, I'll hang for what I done, but the Kimes brothers beat me to hell by a whole month. Johnny's thoughts were interrupted when he heard the heavy steel door at the end of the hallway squeak open on its rusty hinges and then bang shut. It was a common occurrence, and he paid it little mind. But something caused Johnny to swing a look. James Fagan, the United States Marshal, and Jack Bascom, the jailer, trudged wearily down the narrow passageway and stopped in front of the cramped cell Johnny shared with a dozen other men. The jailer lifted a coal oil lantern and peered into the cage. The jagged circle of flickering light illuminated the cell and projected eerie shadows against the wall. Men in varied degrees of dress and undress huddled on the cold, filthy concrete floor in their own squalor. "Shooter!" the jailer bellowed out with his bullfrog voice. "Front and center!" Bascom was a bear of a man who sniffled like he had a head cold all the time.